Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom.
People in every part of the globe are perishing because their judgment is low. From children to teens to elderly folks, this epidemic is incredibly bold. Wisdom is needed to see through the fog. Without it, we'll stumble and see to the long. You're jumping without something to break and fall if you choose to ignore wisdom's beckoning call. The only people who will lose the war are those who don't know who they're fighting for. You are the only one who can decide your fate. Don't waste your life when you can live inside a race. If we turn to God and behold the shining face, we will gain traction and run in this human race.
Hey, what's going on? JC Johnson here, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. On today's episode, we're discussing hedonism. More on that after this.
Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom.
All right, what's going on? For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, and you are listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. So we are in the second hour of the show now, and on the first hour we were discussing hedonism. We're going to continue the conversation, and one thing that we were looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, and it talked about how King Solomon, who at that time in history was the richest and wisest man in the world, and he was saying that he had access to everything, right? He had access to singers who would follow him around and sing for him whenever he wanted. I mean, it was like almost like, imagine like a musical, right? It seems like in the musical, at just the right moment, people just break out and sing, and you say, how did everyone know, how did everyone know what this song was? How were they able to harmonize with each other and sing on beat and on key and all that? It was as if they practiced it. Well, this was exactly what Solomon's life was like. He had everything that you could possibly imagine. He had it all. But because he had it all, he felt like he had to get into stuff in order to feel something. He felt like he had to get into extreme pleasure and everything in order to feel like his life was meaningful, like his life was worth it. So basically, he was in a position where a lot of people find themselves in, especially people who maybe have mass amounts of wealth, and or maybe just people who have a lot of free time and they just don't know what to do with themselves. So he started seeking after pleasure, but ultimately what he found is that living your life solely for pleasure is really not worth it. Let's take a look at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. This has some really good information here about this subject, and I think that it will help with our conversation on hedonism. And this was taken from stanford.edu. You can go there to check out the entire entry. It's pretty lengthy, so we just got a few snippets here. And it says that the word hedonism, it comes from the ancient Greek word for pleasure. And psychological or motivational hedonism claims that only pleasure or pain motivates us. Ethical or evaluative hedonism claims that only pleasure has worth or value, and only pain or displeasure has disvalue or the opposite of worth. And that's pretty interesting, so people that hold to this view, and it's in the truest sense of the word, right? People who live by this, people who are diehard hedonists, basically what they'll say is anything that gives me pleasure is good. Anything that gives me pleasure is not only good, but it is valuable. But anything that brings me pain is not only bad, but it has no worth. It has no value. Now, for some people, this may be helpful in some situations. For example, let's just say somebody is, a guy, let's say a guy is dating a girl and the girl breaks his heart. right? Or at least something that she does would break most people's hearts. Well, if this guy is a true hedonist, then he may say, this feeling that I'm feeling right now, it doesn't feel good. It actually feels bad. So really, it's not valuable. It's not worth my time. I need to go do something that's going to make me happy. Right? Now, in some circumstances, somebody who becomes addicted to a hardcore narcotic such as heroin or cocaine, they say, I love the feeling I get when I get super high. And because I love this feeling, I'm going to indulge in it. Not just occasionally, not just once or twice. I'm going to make this a daily habit. This is going to be something that I do before I eat my breakfast, before I drink my coffee in the morning, before I do anything. I'm going to hook myself up with this narcotic, right? This is the mindset of someone who has given themselves wholly over to that kind of pleasure. But as we mentioned during the first hour, pleasure in and of itself is not bad, because there are some people that derive extreme amounts of pleasure from spending time with their family, from building meaningful relationships with people. This is something that gives them great pleasure, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So pleasure, there's nothing wrong with it. But I think that one thing we can learn from the author of Ecclesiastes is that where it becomes an issue is when you begin living for pleasure as opposed to living for principles that are higher. You can receive pleasure from different things, and that's fine as long as you don't let the pursuit of pleasure control you to the point that it destroys you, because that's when pleasure can become unhealthy, or at least the pursuit of it can become unhealthy. Because for this reason, this is why one person may take another person's life. Maybe they say, hey, I caught you, stealing Pop-Tarts out of the grocery store. I'm going to tell the manager. This person says, well, I can't have you do that because my life is pleasurable right now because I get to do whatever I want, like steal Pop-Tarts. So I need to take you out so that you can't tell on me, right? So this is when people allow their pleasure to rule their decisions, and people make poor choices because they're trying to protect themselves. And yeah, it's not good. We have to be careful that we don't let pleasure ruin us. Kind of like it did for the writer of Ecclesiastes. Many believe him to be King Solomon. And if you're familiar with the story, King Solomon, even though he was the richest and wisest man in the world, he ended up making some poor choices. He ended up hooking up with the wrong types of women and put himself in bad situations where he was actually influenced to start doing evil. He was influenced to, stop believing in God as a result. And this is something that can happen to anyone. Nobody is above that. Nobody can say, oh, I'm stronger than that. This will never happen to me. Because if it can happen to the wisest man in the world, then that means it can happen to either me or you if we're not careful. And so that's why I think it's so important. And I say this not to scare you, because there's no reason to be scared if we look at it this way and say, we need someone, something to keep us grounded, right? And that someone that we need to keep us grounded is God, because he's the one that can help us to keep life and everything in our lives, all the great things that he's given to us. He helps us to keep it all in perspective. He helps us to look at things properly. He helps us to not worship the creation, but to instead worship the Creator, right? He helps us to keep our focus on him. If we do that, we'll make good choices. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy then goes on to say that otherwise they have only instrumental importance through the pleasure that they cause or displeasure that they diminish. So again, going back to this idea that something is only valuable if it either provides me pleasure, or not valuable if it doesn't provide me pleasure. And one significant objection, it says, to hedonism about value is based on claims about the nature and existence of pleasure. So it assumes that hedonism about value conjoins this with the eliminativist thesis that there is no such thing as pleasure. Now that's a whole other extreme, right? And this goes back to a little bit of what we were saying before, how there are actually some people in this life who don't receive pleasure from the things that most people do receive pleasure from. They don't receive pleasure from ice cream. They don't receive pleasure from riding on a roller coaster. Instead, maybe they receive pleasure from things that are unhealthy, like Jeffrey Dahmer did, receiving pleasure from dead bodies, things that are just not natural and just not cool, right? But more on that after this. You are listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. JC Johnson here for the love of wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And we'll be right back. Hey, what's going on? JC Johnson here, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, right here on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. And on today's show, we're discussing the wisdom of hedonism, right? What wisdom can be derived from hedonism, you may say. If you've been listening, you know that hedonism in its rawest form, if somebody truly lives their life by that, and they are just seeking pleasure for pleasure's sake, they can find themselves in all types of bad situations. But hedonism is not all bad, and there's someone who I think has a very interesting take on this whole idea of hedonism. It's a guy by the name of John Piper. He's a pastor, and he actually made a video about hedonism, but what he calls Christian hedonism. And I think that this is pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting take on this whole idea. So in John Piper's video, What is Christian Hedonism? He said this. He said, the shortest description of Christian hedonism is God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. So I'll say that once more. God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. And I thought that was a pretty interesting take on this idea, because a lot of people, especially within the church, would have a problem with the doctrine of hedonism. They would say this is not something that a person should have as a philosophy of life, especially if this person is a Christian. But John Piper flips it, and he says that Christian hedonism can actually be a good thing, because this has to do with finding our pleasure, our satisfaction, our happiness in God first and foremost. And I think that this really helps to put it in a different perspective, because it helps you to see that pleasure, there's nothing wrong with pleasure. Pleasure is not the problem. The problem is when one lives for pleasure, when one makes decisions solely for pleasure's sake and pleasure alone. That's where things can get dangerous. John Piper then went on to mention C.S. Lewis, who is a theologian and a famous author from the 20th century. C.S. Lewis, he said that, basically he came into the picture with his amazing statement that our problem as human beings is not that our desires are too strong, but that our desires are too weak. So John Piper then says, he thought that his desires were actually the problem, but the desires are not the problem, because C.S. Lewis basically said that, no, your desires aren't the problem. The weakness of your desires are the problem. You're like a child fooling about in slums with your mud pies because you can't imagine what a holiday at the sea is like. In other words, he says, Your desires for the great things that God is offering you are way too small. Your problem is not big desires, but small desires for big things. That right there is awesome. That's worth repeating. He said, your problem is not big desires, but small desires for big things. That's really important. That has to do with perspective. So then he goes on to give this illustration. John Piper, he says, basically imagine if it was his anniversary and he and his wife, who goes by the name of Noel, he and his wife Noel are getting ready to celebrate their anniversary. And he says to his wife, I'm going to take you out tonight because it is our 47th anniversary and spending that night with you would make me really happy. And what he says here is true. And if you are married, you know this for sure. No wife has ever said, nor would Noel, John Piper's wife, ever say, you're so selfish. All you think about is yourself. It makes you happy taking me out and spending the evening with me? Right? No wife ever complains that is selfish. Why is that? So he goes on to say this, because if I pursue my full satisfaction in my wife, she is honored. So it is the same thing with God. If we're drawn to God because we want to spend time with God, if God is our treasure and our satisfaction, God is honored. And I think that this is it's a great way to redeem this word hedonism, to say that it doesn't have to be something bad. I think that what really matters is, what is the thing that you are really seeking after? What is the true source of your pleasure? What is the true source of the opposite of that pleasure? What is the true source of your pain, right? If it's something positive, if it's something good, such as desiring God, right? Or desiring closeness with your spouse, or, desiring to, repair a broken relationship with a close friend or family member or something like that. All those things, if you have a great desire for those things, that's a good thing. You should have a great desire for that kind of stuff. But where things can go wrong is when you use that same intensity, that same passion, and you link that to desiring something that's unhealthy, something that's bad for you, something that could eventually destroy you. And that is the warning here. That is the thing that we want to avoid. We don't want to be in a situation where we're seeking after the wrong things in life. We want to seek after the right things in life. But we're gonna spend a little bit more time on that, kind of just looking at this whole topic of hedonism and experiencing pleasure in a good way and not a bad way. Seeking after the right things instead of the wrong things. One thing I want to mention real quickly before we go to the break, just released a book on January 1st. It is called The 40-Day Fire, Burning Away All That Does Not Resemble Your Destiny. And I'm excited about it. It is it's stylized as a devotional. It's broken down into 40 days. Basically, each day has a different topic to focus on. And basically what it is a 40-day journey. It's a journey intended to light a fire underneath you. Because from time to time, all of us, we all need a little bit of a push. And this book is something that will do just that. It's something that can get you off the couch if you're sitting in despair, trying to figure out why you're not accomplishing things that you think you should be accomplishing. It's something that hopefully will give you the drive that you need, maybe to start the business that you've always wanted to start, or maybe to pursue that relationship that you have always wanted to, to do things that may, depending on what your circumstances are, may seem impossible, but you know that it is possible if you give it your all and you position yourself properly. And that's what the book is really about. It's about how every decision that you make in life ultimately is going to reveal your destiny. Each step that you take, with each step that you take, your pathway becomes more and more visible. So looking at the word destiny, if you look at the prefix of that word, destiny is related to the word destination, right? And your destiny is wherever you are destined to be. So if you make great decisions, you're going to be destined for something that's great. But if you make foolish decisions, right, then your destiny is going to be somewhere not so great. And really, the book is basically to say, it's not about making all the right decisions in life. It's not about being perfect, but really it is about making the effort. It's about putting yourself out there. It's about taking the steps that are necessary in order to lead you to your destiny, right? So definitely check that out. You can get that on Amazon. Go to Amazon.com. Right now there's a special promotion. The book's only 99 cents. So check that out. Let me know what you think. And you are listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. We'll be back after this. JC Johnson here for The Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom.